What's up guys, welcome back to another For Those Go video. This channel is where we discuss and learn new skills around the topics of design and development. If you want to grow your skills and learn new things that are coming up, please subscribe for more videos just like this. Don't forget to smash the like button for me. This really helps me to create more content. In this video, we'll be learning about how we can make the use of Vercel CronJob inside of our real-world application. If you have missed in our previous video, we discussed and went through how we can make the use of Vercel CronJob, and we just scratched our surface there. The video link is here for your convenience, but in this video, we'll be making the use of Vercel CronJobs inside of our real-world application, where we'll be using and sending emails that will inform us about the weather forecast that we have for today. So I know that this is a really cool application that we are building along. After the end of the video, we'll get an email with the news about the weather information right inside your inbox. That would be super awesome. And if you're totally losing patience, please find the source code in the attachment down below. So without any delay, let's get started. So I've brought in iTerm here, so you can use any terminal you want. And let's go ahead and create a blank Next.js project. So I'm inside of my desktop, so that would be okay for now. And let's scaffold a new project with npx create next app add latest, and there will be a few questions for us. What would be our project name? For now, we will just call it Vercel Cron Scheduler, and we won't be really using TypeScript for this project for now. And for ESLint, yes, and src directory would be yes, and obviously we want to experiment with the app directory. And also let's add an alias for our import alias, and after hitting that, we will be creating our blank Next.js project and opening up inside of our code editor. First of all, we will be needing some environment variables because we will be using some third-party API calls for that. We'll be making the use of this particular website, which is a great resource for fetching some weather data. And you can go to API reference for more information, or log in if you have an account, or register if you don't have. So let's go to API reference for now. And inside here, we can see there are a couple of locations API as well as forecast API. So we will be making the use of these both forecast and location API. First of all, we will be diving into location API, and we'll be using this particular thing, which is use this city search narrowed by country code, and make the use of this particular thing. So let's go ahead and click it, and as you can see, we need an API key, so you can create an account. So they do have a generous free plan, so you can use it. And for now, I'll just add a dummy placeholder here, send a request. And if you see this curl and see this URL, you can see we'll be making the use of same URL pattern to send our request, so that we can fetch some CD information, CD data. So let's go ahead and log in to our account, because we already have here. So after logging in, you should create some application. I'm already logged in, so if I go to my application, and here we can see one of the application has been created and it's approved. So you can click on this, and here is the API key. So I'll just copy this API key and paste it inside of our environment variables. Also, meanwhile, we'll be making the use of a mailgun to send our emails, but for now we'll just be focusing towards some weather data. So let's go to our text editor, and inside here, let's go ahead and create .env file. So inside of .env, we need, basically for the full project to run, we need 3 API keys, and one is from weather data, and these 2 are from mailgun. So I'll just leave that empty. Let's go ahead and paste some weather API keys here. So, that would be basically created inside of your application. You can find it inside my apps, and copy this one out and paste it inside of here. For now, we will just make the use of this with the app API keys, and we will pasting in the Mailgun API keys later on. Another thing is, let's go to our SRC, and inside of our API, let's rename this to probably better sounding name called send email. And also inside of our route, we can see we have a get request, which response is just a string, which is hello Next.js. So let's call it hello Vercel Cron, and hit save. And inside of our terminal, let's run this project locally. So our Next.js application is running locally, and we want to navigate to API slash send email, and we can see Vercel hello Vercel Cron. This is fine. So a next step would be, first of all, let's go ahead and see some weather information, how we can fetch some weather information. First of all, we want to fetch some location endpoints. So let's go to location API, and inside here we want to fetch some data for our, we are pretty much interested towards fetching some city search. So we will just make the use of this particular endpoint. So we can see we have the API key, query parameter that we can add, and also some offset. So these are probably optional parameters that we can add. And you can see our response parameter. We have the list of response parameter that we would get, and these are HTTP code that we would get. So for now, let's fill it a dummy and send this request. And inside of our curl, we'll make the use of same URL format that we have here. So let's go ahead inside of our text editor. First thing is, we want to import or access our process environment variables from process.env. So let's create a constant and call it weather key, and that weather key can be accessed from process.env weather key, weather API key. And let's go ahead inside of our get request here. We won't be using a post request because it's not dealing with any form data, so that's why it's just a get request. First of all, let's create a constant and call it a city, and for the city we can just add a city name. Basically we can just add Newark, and let's also create a constant for country code, and that would be US. And now let's go ahead and create another constant, and let's call it location endpoint const, and make the use of backticks there. And inside here we want to make the use of same URL pattern that we saw before, which is pretty much similar to this. So we'll be achieving the same URL pattern that we see here, with the search API key appended here, and also query that's appended here as well, which is this query, which is a text to search for. Inside of our location endpoint, we'll just paste in this particular URL, and we are passing in country code here. So after that's done, let's create another constant and call it location request, and we will wait for a fetch. And inside here we want to paste in the same URL pattern that we saw before using backticks, and inside there we will just paste in this particular URL, the same pattern we saw before. So after that's done, let's create a constant and call it location data, and we will wait for location request, and we will turn it into a JSON. Let's go ahead and console log the location data and hit on save. What we now need to do is, let's go to the browser and send down a get request to this particular endpoint, and let's also open up our console. And what it says is I'm unauthorized, probably because I have not set up the environment's variables. I'll recheck it and let you know. As you can see, I've missed out the API keys, so I'll just copy and paste the API keys here, and let's go ahead and close that out. After that's done, let's again go to our application and hit on a get request, and let's take a look at our terminal. And as you can see here, we do have some kind of data that's there. So basically what we are interested towards is, we want to grab the key, which is this particular thing, because we want to fetch the forecast for this particular key. So that's why we need that particular key. All right, so after we console log this particular information, then we already saw what kind of data that we are receiving. So let's go ahead and create a constant and call it location key, and that can be the same key that we just saw, which is location data, first item in that array, and access the property that is key. And let's create a constant and call it forecast endpoint, and that particular API endpoint that we'll be using is the forecast. So let's go ahead back to the docs and go to API reference and go to forecast API. And what we want to do is we want a 1 day of daily forecast. So we'll click on this, and the same thing, let's place in a dummy API key for now, and go to curl, and we can see we are making the use of same URL pattern that we see here. So let's go ahead and you make the use of the same URL pattern, so which I've already prepared. I will go ahead and paste that one out. So after that's done, we want to create another constant and call it forecast results or requests, and let's wait for the fetch call. And inside here we want to make the use of full URL pattern that we saw before, also including the API keys, so that we could fetch some data. After that's done, we can also like parse it out with .json. There's a typo there, so let's call it forecast endpoint, and also let's call this forecast endpoint. And let's see what do we have in the forecast data. So let's console log the forecast data, and let's hit on a get request to this particular URL. So I'll just go to the browser and refresh this. So after hitting refresh, then we can see we have the daily forecast, which is an array of one object, and inside there we have the temperature, day, night sources, and the link to the URL for the web page and mobile link. And also we have the headline, which is thunderstorms, some heavy late Friday night throughout the evening, and also category, end date, and whatnot. So we are pretty much ready for our API endpoint for our forecast weather results. So now let's go ahead and make the use of Mailgun. So I will just stop the server, install Mailgun, npm I mailgun-js. So after installing, we can see Mailgun that has been installed inside of our dependencies here. So Mailgun is installed. Let's go back to our routes, and inside of our routes, first thing is we want to make the use of Mailgun API keys. So to get the Mailgun API keys, if you don't have one, create an account inside of Mailgun, and I will just get started for free and hitting login. And after hitting on login, please use your credentials to log in, and you should see API keys inside of your dashboard. So inside of my particular dashboard, I have 7 by 7 delivered emails, which I have already used. So if you are planning to use this in production application, you should add some domains, make the use of own custom domain, but we'll be using testing this one out. So we'll be using this particular specific domain that is a default domain provided to us, and we won't be adding any custom domains here. But if I go to API documentation and also go to API keys, we can see the API keys here, and also we can go to documentation. So inside of documentation, let's go to quick start guide, and inside quick start guide, sending emails, and we want to select Node.js, and here we can see the snippet of code how we can send emails via Mailgun using their API. So this is something that we will be using. So first thing first, let's go ahead and grab API key, and also probably you must need a domain. So for that, probably you can go to domains and click on this and copy this particular domain here, which you'll be using as your domain. But if you are looking for a custom domain, you should switch your plans. But I'm just using this particular domain provided by Mailgun. So that'd be fine for now. So let's go to API, and here you can see also the snippet how we can make the use of Mailgun inside of our Node.js applications. First thing is, let's go to our environment variables, and I'll paste in additional environment variables that we need from Mailgun right in here. You can access it the same way that we did before. So I want to access the key and also the domain. So let's go ahead and create a constant for that, and we'll be accessing process env API key and domain from the Mailgun. So now let's go ahead and create a constant. So we can create a constant. Before we create a constant, we could also visit the Mailgun documentation. So we can see here we have something called const mg Mailgun API key and domain. So we'll be making the use of same snippet of code what we have seen here, which is initializing Mailgun with API key and domain, and also provide data, which is an object with the property from to subject and text, and later on we send the message with a dot message method, and we have another method which is dot send, which takes in data and have a callback, and we just console log the body here. So we can like make the use of the same way. It's called Mailgun. So probably we haven't imported Mailgun, so I will just import Mailgun for now. And yeah, Mailgun, and we access API key and the domain. And now the next step is to create our data. So that particular data is the same thing that we saw before. So let's go to here and let's copy this one out, and let's paste in right in here. So this is called data, and we can have from to subject, and probably let's swap this to HTML because we are sending some HTML here. And let's change this to backticks. And inside there, what we want to do is we want to paste in some HTML that I've already created. Basically, I've accessed everything that we have from this forecast data, which is in the heading one, we have the forecast data headline text, and paragraph is the category, and also we access the temperature minimum value, and also the minimum unit for that minimum temperature, and also temperature max. And we have a button, and that button is just a link. So after this data is prepared, basically the data accessed from the weather API keys that we have set, and we have this particular forecast data. After that's done, we can now go ahead and call mg.message and call chain another method, which is .send. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's call mg.message, and we want to chain in another method, which is send. And inside there, we can access the data that we defined here, which is the data, and have a callback if there are any error. And also we want to access the body. We can just console log the error, and also send a response of response status of 500, and also send a message telling that there is error, sending email. After that error handling is done, we can now call, or just console log for now, console log the body dot message. Probably this method is called messages, so I will just change this to messages, and this all looks fine. So after that's done, let's remove our console, and let's also pass in another argument, and we will call it status, and status can be just 200. We are pretty much finished for our writing our so this would be fine for now. So let's go ahead and push this inside of our GitHub repository. Also, I want to link it to Vercel so that we could make the use of cron jobs. So one thing that's missing here is let's go ahead and create vercel.json file so that we could make the use of cron jobs. So inside of our vercel.json file, what we want to do is we want to define what is the path for our API, Cron API, and the schedule is just 9 a.m. UTC time, and it schedules just 9 a.m. every day. So let's go ahead and save it, and let's also go ahead and save our route. Probably we are pretty much good enough till this point to push our code inside of our Vercel application. So inside of our Vercel dashboard, we can visit the project. We'll go to CronJobs, and inside here we can see CronJob that has been added, which is /API/send email, which schedules at 9 a.m. and we can run it manually. For now, I have already pushed and it has already executed. And if we see inside of our Gmail, then we should see one email there. So this is great. So we have just prepared a simple project application using cron jobs inside Vercel. So guys, in this video we'll learn about how we can make the use of cron job inside of our Vercel for our real world project application. So I hope you learned something new from this. If you want to learn more around the topics of design and development, please subscribe for more videos just like this. Don't forget to smash the like button for me. This really helps me to create more content. Thanks a lot, guys. See you in the next one.